everybody. I'm Diana. Welcome to my channel, Sew Uncommon. Thank you so much for joining us. We are home of Build-A-Quilt, where we build our quilts and our quilt blocks in the hoop of our embroidery machine. And all you really need is a 5x7 hoop to build big, beautiful quilts and quilt blocks in the with your embroidery machine. And today our video is one of our Quilt Lab basic videos, which is all about the quarter square triangle. We've had another basic video where we did the half square triangle. And if you stay with me till the end of the video, I'm going to show you how you can get your own pattern pack with the digital files you need to create your own quarter square triangles for your quilt. There's only one size in this free package. It'll be a 5x5. All of our basics that are free come in a 5x5 size. That allows you to make some pretty good size quilts and quilt squares. And then we, of course, have our basic set, which we'll talk about at the end as well. So the quarter square triangle, what is it? Well, it's this little guy right here. Now, this is kind of a small one, but it's this little guy right here. And it is made in the same idea of the half square triangle, flip and stitch. And you're going to see a demo video clip of how we create that. But with the quarter square triangle, we need to make it in two pieces, and then we stitch them together. You can see it's stitched together on the back, but it's really easy because you have a guideline to follow on the sewing machine. So you do not need a 1/4 inch foot. You don't need to know what a 1/4 inch seam is or a scant 1/4 inch or anything like that. Because there's a built-in guideline to give you the perfect seam every time. As long as you can stitch down that guideline, you're in good shape every single time. So why don't we go ahead and go over to my camera and let's talk about the quarter square triangle and show you some things. Okay, here we are. So like I said, typically for 5x5 segments and below, a 5x7 hoop is all you ever need. We will be coming out with some expanded size sets, which will require bigger hoops, but those will be coming out in 2024. For now, and for all of our regular 2x2, 3x3, 4x4, and 5x5 segment pieces, a 5x7 hoop is all you're going to need. So here is our little quarter square triangle. And if you can see, it's basically two halves, this half and this half. So let's talk about fabric. You're going to need, and your instructions will give you size information and all of that, but you're going to need 2 squares of fabric. You can do a light and a dark. You can do a print and a solid, or like I have here, really 2 prints. These are prints that I would say read as solid from a distance because these are just tiny little dots, and this is a very small, delicate print. So once you cut out your 2 squares, just stack them up, and with your ruler, just lay it across on the diagonal. Let me stack that a little neater. When you lay it across on the diagonal like that, and you use your 45 millimeter rotary cutter, just cut it along the diagonal, and then you end up with 4 triangles. You'll end up with 2 of one color and 2 of another color. And I have 2 here because you're going to see the other 2 I used in the demo video. But the 4 pieces that you end up with will make one full quarter square triangle for you. And the quarter square triangle is a great piece, kind of like the half square triangle, which allows you to go from color to color and create shape and all. The quarter square triangle does that, but it can do it in more than one way. With a half square triangle, you have one color and another color. You just have the 2 colors. With a quarter square, you could do this in 4 different colors. That would really allow you to change colors in all directions. Or you could do one half in one color scenario, one half with the same background color, but a different secondary color. There's lots of ways that you can switch up your quarter square triangle, just depending on what your pattern calls for. So you will need these 4 triangles to make your quarter square triangle. And why don't we go ahead and go now and watch the demo and see how this is put together. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about how it gets finished. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at that demo video right now. Okay, here we are at the embroidery machine, and I have my hoop and my stabilizer all in place. I'll be piecing with a black thread today so you all can see it, but you know that I prefer a light dove gray thread. I've talked about that a lot of times before. 0184 Isocord is my favorite. It's actually called Pearl, but it's a super light dove gray thread. That's what I like to piece with. So now we've talked about our fabric and cutting it, but I want to show you that I have my 1 square was cut. So I have my 2 pieces in the red and I have my 2 pieces in the green. And so 1 block of each color will create your entire quarter square triangle, but you are going to stitch it into segments. So the first thing we're going to do is do our outline. This tells us kind of where things are going to end up being. Yeah, you can see that pretty good. And the quarter square triangle pattern that you're going to be able to pick up in the pattern pack, the free download is for a 5x5. Now you will have a stop there. It won't drag your thread over like mine did. I'm using an older file. The newer file has been upgraded for you guys. So, alrighty. So here we have our quarter square triangle stitched out onto our stabilizer. The first thing we're going to do now is place, this will be step 2, or step 3 for you guys, will be to place our fabric here. I'm going to use the red fabric for this particular spot. Doesn't really matter. Normally, if I have a light and a dark, I'll lay my light down first so that when I flip my dark, I don't get shadowing, but that's not going to be a problem here. Now, I'm going to lay this on top just as I see it here. In fact, let me bring this out a little bit so you can see it a little bit easier. There we go. So this has the point going down, so I'm going to lay my fabric with the point going down. And I just need, I can feel it right here. I just need to make sure that it is over the line. I've got, yeah, I can feel it like right there. So I'm really almost right at 1/4 inch. And I've got plenty over here on these 2 outer borders for trimming later. All right, let's place this back in. And now we're going to stitch this down. And remember, you will make 2 of these to create your full quarter square triangle. Oh, I cut that one a little close right there. I didn't lay it quite as good as I should, but I didn't feel that quite right, but that'll work fine. Now, for the second one, which is going to be my green fabric, right there, I am going to lay it right side down, right on top, just the way this is. Just the way this is. Okay. If I lay it in any other direction, it's not going to cover this when we flip it. So you just lay it on top of it, just the same direction and all as the other. You just lay it right side down. Then we're going to stitch this piece down. Now I'm going to give a little bit of glue stick there. I'll pull this out just a little bit. Now I'm just going to take this and I am going to flip it over. And I can use my seam roller if I like to make this flatter and all in here if I want to, or I can just use my fingers. Now this next step will be to stitch this down, this fabric down. And because of the size I have you cut, you have plenty of fabric. So you're going to have plenty to trim away and get that perfect trimmed edge that you need for what will become your seam allowance and all. So now the very last thing we're going to do is to stitch out the boundary box. I'm going to place a little bit of tape over here so that my foot doesn't catch that. It's not going to catch it up here, so I don't need to worry about that. Just put my tape there. I always use a longer piece and then peel it off, and I can use it for several stitch outs instead of having to cut it each and every time. And that is exactly what I'm going to do with my next two pieces as well, in the exact same order. Don't flip them. Don't make your next one with the green down and the red on the side. Otherwise, it's not going to line up properly. I'm going to take this out. Let me just peel that away and put it over here. I just always stick it over on my thing. And then there is half of our quarter square triangle. Now let's go back to our other camera. Okie doke. So here is the piece that you just saw being created in the demo. I'll remove it from the hoop. I will take it over and I will trim away the excess fabric, and I'll show you that under the hoop here, or under the other camera here in just a moment. And we're going to talk about how you then take your two halves, because you'll create two of them, and how we finish this off. Okay, so let's go ahead and flip over to that other camera and do that now. Alrighty, so here we are. Let me just remove that little bit of tape that I had left there. And let me grab my little screwdriver here, and we'll take this out and trim it. And then we'll talk about how the rest of how it gets put together. And then if you stick with me, I'm still going to show you the pattern information and all that you get and where you can get that at no cost. So let me just set my hoop aside. Alrighty, so here I have 1/2 of my quarter square triangle. And both halves are going to be laid out just the exact same way when I create them. Here are the two halves. I'm going to show you how to put those together here in a second. If you'll notice, they're laid out exactly the same way. I don't flip them. If I flip them, they're not going to end up looking like this. They'll look different, and we'll talk about that again in just a bit. So you're going to need a ruler with a 1/4 inch mark on it. That's the only piece you need to have that needs to have a 1/4 inch mark on it. Whoops, sorry about that. I just bumped the camera. And then I like, for cutting out, I like using a pinking blade, rotary cutter, a 45 millimeter. But if you don't have that, you can also use your normal standard 45 millimeter blade. I like this because the pinking, you can see it here on this piece, takes some of the bulk out of your seams for you. That's all. So I'm laying my 1/4 inch line. I'm sorry, this is a little skewed. Let me put it like this, and then because I'm a lefty. Let's see if we can get that light out of the way a little bit. Well, sorry about that. That light's reflecting off. I apologize. But you're going to take your 1/4 inch mark on your ruler and lay it right on your guideline. That was the very last thing you did, was create that guideline. And you can see it really good in this sample piece because I used the black thread. We're going to lay that 1/4 inch mark right on that 1/4 inch, and we're going to trim that right out. And I just put a fresh blade. Boy, my old blade was so dull. I try to change my blade out every quilt I make, and I hadn't done that yet. And the other day, I felt like I was cutting through concrete with that old blade. And all I do is move around my entire triangle. So I do this for both halves to cut it out, to trim it out. There we go. And boy, does a fresh blade work well. And you're going to do that with both of your halves. Just put that there. There we go. So you're going to have 2 halves just like this. Okay. Now let's bring over these 2 little guys, and they're going to look exactly the same. And this is why, because when I flip this one over and I lay it on top of the other one, if I flip them open, I get that 1/4 square look. So now if I'm thinking about doing this with 4 different colors, I would do, in each half, I would do 1 color, 2 colors, 3rd color, 4th color. That again would allow me to spread my color out. Or maybe I'm doing something completely scrappy. That would allow that completely scrappy look to take on a whole life of its own, really. And you'll do whatever your pattern tells you, or if you're designing your own pattern, whatever you want. You might want these 2 prints different, but if the solid were your background, you might want them the same. That's entirely up to you. Now I'm going to show you one of my favorite little tips. As you can see on the back, we have our guideline here, and that's what we're going to stitch across to stitch these together. But I know you're thinking, yeah, but now I've got to line up all of this on there and make sure that I get my points right. I'm going to tell you first off, don't kill yourself over trying to be perfect with matching your seam lines. If they're really close, leave them alone. If they're way different, then of course you might want to fix that. But the quest for perfection can be the death of something really beautiful, because you just spend so much time trying to be perfect. So what I like to use is a glass-headed straight pin. And if you've been with us here at Sew Uncommon for a while, you've seen this tip. But I like placing it right here in the center where those 2 pieces come together. There we go. Now I just come across to my other piece and I place that pin right where those pieces come together. And I just pin it through. Then I line everything up. Now I know, as I'm working, I know that I'm lined up where I need to be for those seams to come together. And then if you like, you can take a quilting clip. Let me just grab one here, and you can put one on this side, line up over here, and put one on this side. And once it's secure, you might even want to take a 3rd one. What I always like to do is I like to place a quilting clip over the point where my pin was. So I'm going to hold it right there where my pin was, pull that pin out, don't move anything. And I like to put a quilting clip right there. It holds it right into place. That way I can put my pin away. I don't have to bring my pin under my sewing machine where it can have problems. And then I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to put my needle right here in the corner. But I'm not going to pierce. I'm just going to bring it down with my hand crank right here. And then using my machine functions, I'm going to move my sewing machine needle 1 click to the inside. 1 click, not 2, not 3. If 1 is good, 2 is better, no. If 2 is good, 3 is better, no. All you want to do is put it 1 click in, because then your needle is going to ride this seam, this guideline seam, all the way down. You just remove your clips as you sew, and then when you're done, you'll open it up. That looks funny, right? Because I haven't finished. But when you open it up, you'll have that great quarter square triangle. Okay. And if you want, before you do it, before you remove that pin even, open it up, make sure you have everything where you want it to be. So if I do this, and then I do this, and now I can put my pin through a little bit more, because now I'm going to open it up, and I can see right now I'm right where I need to be. That's going to turn out great. And then I can put my clips in, and I know I'm going to end up great. And all you have to do is follow that line, because you've already cut your seam allowance. Your seam allowance is delineated by that guideline, and you're done. And then you're going to have your beautiful quarter square triangle. And now let's go back over to our main camera, and let's talk about how you get your pattern and all of that. So all of our patterns are available at our website, sewuncommon.com. We have lots of free patterns. We have patterns from our blocks of the month this year. All of them are free. In fact, we are just in the last couple of weeks of our quilt along for this year. All of that information, the videos are here. There's a playlist that says Starlight Starbright Quilt Along 2023. All of those videos tell you what to get out on the website. All of those patterns and stuff were free. So if you're like, hey, I want to go ahead and try it, do it. It's not difficult at all. But for this quarter square triangle, when you go to the website, you're going to look for this. Build a quilt, patchwork in the hoop, and it's going to say full pattern set and digital files, quarter square triangle 5x5. Okay, and it'll be a free packet. You will get a zipped file folder, and in that file folder, there is going to be your file to create your quarter square halves. And then in the file packet, which you can just leave on your computer, you can print it out in color or print it out in black and white. You get a little bit of information about me and what you're making. You get a general supply list for when you're doing patchwork in the hoop. You're going to get a color layout and placement template. So fabric 1, fabric 2. Pretty easy for this one, but you know, it's always nice to have. And then you're going to get what we call the cut sheet. The cut sheet is going to be in black and white for fabric 1, fabric 2. And then down here, it's going to tell you what you need to cut and what you need to do if you need to subcut it. And by subcut, that's exactly what we're doing when we're cutting this on the diagonal. That's our subcut. So you'll get all of that information on this cut sheet. Then you're going to get what I absolutely love, and I know some of you do too, because last week somebody sent me some of their coloring sheets as pictures so that I could look at them and try to talk to them about and help them figure out colors for the quilt that they're doing, for the quilt along. You're going to get our exclusive coloring sheet. Why a coloring sheet? Now, I know this has a square all the way around it. It's just for 1/2, okay? It's 1/2. You could, it's supposed to say, it's supposed to be 2 halves. I'll double check that. You're supposed to be able to see the same thing here. But what you could do is just, if it's not in there, just extend that line. You'll have all 4 quarters. I'm pretty sure I fixed it, but I'll double check that. I may have printed this before I fixed it. But what you can do is take your crayons or your coloring pencils and color it in before you ever go and start cutting your beautiful fabric. Because I know, especially if you're doing something with scrappy fabric, you might have just enough. And this really helps you to know, hey, is that going to be what I really want before I go and cut this, because if you're like me, I have fabrics that are like some of my all-time favorites, and I will keep them down until I've got just like the littlest pieces left before I throw away. And I try to get them in scrappy quilts in everything that I can put them in, because I love the fabrics so much. So if I have, like, say, a piece like that left, before I go cutting that, I want to make sure that that is the piece that I want for this block or for this quilt. The coloring sheet can help you figure that out. Then you're going to get some general piecing instructions. Then you're going to get a piecing layout template that shows you how to put your two halves together, and it's going to tell you where to go and find the video so that you can rewatch the demo. And then the last sheet is just some thank you, and if you need support, how to get a hold of us. Because, you know, folks, here at Sew Uncommon, with my Build a Quilt system, the one thing I want to make sure is that you get the support that you need. That's why I created it, is so that people that used to be able to quilt and can't quilt now because of problems with hands or whatever can quilt again. Or if you're brand new to quilting, and I know a lot of you are, that you get the support you need. And as somebody who's been quilting for over 55 years, I know how great it is to have support when you're making things. Even somebody just to say, hey, do you like these colors too? I thought they looked really good together. And typically I'm going to say, yes, I love them. You did great, because putting colors together really is whatever you love personally. And so it's really great to have support, and I want you to have support. I want you to be able to love quilting. And if you are quilting with our system, I want you to really enjoy it. And I want to make sure that you know that you are being supported. Okay, so you can get your packet with the design file for your machine. You'll just look through and find your machine extension. So like mine is PES because I have brother and baby lock. So I look down at PES. I put that on either my USB stick, or if I have another machine where I can send it wirelessly. Boy, is that nice. So you'll just load your file, and then you go to your machine and you're ready to go. Okay. Now at the end of this video, I am going to link my stabilizer video to show you how I like to work with wash away stabilizer. I really think it is the best for this technique, because after I'm done with these, I can wash the stabilizer out. And if we look on the back of this one, there's no stabilizer there. That's just fabric and thread. And that's because the stabilizer got washed away. And so now when I put those blocks into a quilt and I go to quilt, I don't have bulk from stabilizer involved in my quilt. It's just as if I had done it in any other technique. So I will link that at the end for you as well. And I'll also link our half square triangle basic video as well. Maybe you haven't seen that one yet. And that really, the half square triangle is what I call the mama block of all patchwork, because it is used in at least 99.5678% of all of our quilts. The quarter square triangle doesn't get used quite as often, but boy, it's still up there. It is one of the most basic blocks we use, and that's because it can really help to shape and change color and all, just like the half square triangle does. But with this one, we can do it in more ways. So I hope that you have enjoyed this. Don't forget that you can get your pattern pack or any of our free patterns, or our Build a Quilt system, which is our Build a Quilt in the Hoop Block Basic Set 1. Basic Set 2 is about to come out in not too many more weeks. So that's coming before the end of 2023. And that will be another basic set, some more basic block segments that we use. But our Build a Quilt Basic Set 1 is your half square triangle, your quarter square triangle, and your solid square in 4 sizes, plus all the written instructions, all the templates, the diagram step-by-step instructions, and a link to a full how-to video. So if you are ready to dive right in, you might want to do that. If you have done a lot of our free ones and you're like, yes, I want to start creating my own quilts, the Block Basic Set one will help you do that. So that is available as well. So I'd love to ask you all if you would please subscribe to our channel. We're really growing, and I love that because that means lots more people out there making beautiful quilts. And I'd also like to ask, would you please like and share our videos? That helps other people see them, and you don't know, maybe there's somebody out there who's like, I've always wanted to do patchwork quilting, or I have always loved patchwork quilting, I can't do it anymore, but maybe I could do this. I know we have one of our subscribers who's, I hate to call you all subscribers, you're my quilting family, and she has been a quilter for a very long time, but because of problems with her hands and her wrists, she had to give it up or do it kind of intermittently. Well, now she's doing it again and she's loving it. And that just thrills my heart. Or you're brand new and you're like, hey, I don't want to deal with all the stuff that used to go into quilting, which there was nothing wrong with that, right? I like to think of Patchwork in the Hoop as like the next evolution, the next generation of patchwork quilting. So if you would share and like, you never know who's out there who might be interested, and I would appreciate it. And I know YouTube also, when they see those likes and shares, they make sure that those videos get out there to more and more people too. So thank you all so very much. And I will end as I end all my videos. Here at Sew Uncommon, we're dedicated to the art of patchwork, patchwork in the hoop of our embroidery machine, and sewing life beautiful. Until next time, everybody, have a great day. Bye-bye.